Today I'm talking with Rachel Fox, an author, speaker, and someone who's clawed her way back from the depths of PMDD, also known as premenstrual dysphoric disorder. If you've never heard of it, don't worry. Neither had most of her doctors. We're diving into what it's like to live undiagnosed for 2 decades, how rage and rejection sensitivity can sneak up and wreck relationships, and the therapy that completely changed her life. It's raw, it's real, it's funny in that I can't believe we're saying this out loud kind of way. And if you or someone you love has ever felt like a total stranger to yourself for 2 weeks out of the month, this is the episode you've been waiting for. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Suicide Prevention Lady podcast, where we make intervention easy. I'm your host, Dr. Rikki Turner, and I am a suicide intervention expert. Please note, I am the thinky kind of doctor and not a medical professional. So please do not take anything you hear in this episode as medical advice. All right, welcome to the podcast today. We have Rachel Fox. She is a speaker and an author and an expert in curing PMDD naturally. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, naturally. I love your accent.
Oh, gosh. Southern to my core. Sorry about that.
Love it.
As I'm over here just tangled up in microphone wires, like my foot got somehow in between. I'm surprised I didn't take the whole thing down. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, Rachel. It's great to have you.
Thank you. And it's great to be here.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So tell us how you got started in this, and probably start with what PMDD is, and then how you got to become an expert in healing it naturally.
Well, I was undiagnosed for 25 years. I didn't have a name to what I was dealing with. It showed up as depression in high school, and I really learned very well how to mask my symptoms and hide behind the pain, like a lot of us do, because really mental health and menstrual health were not really talked about too much in the 90s. I was convinced that if God didn't heal me or take this pain away from me, or if meds weren't giving me the relief that I needed, that I was born this way, or that something was wrong with me inherently, or that there was like a missing chemical in my brain. These were all like really what I believed, that this was going to be a thorn in my side for the rest of my life. And I hit a rock bottom moment during COVID when my symptoms absolutely skyrocketed. And in my puddle of pain and tears and the end of really me, through what I describe it as an act of divine grace, I sat in front of my computer and I Googled rage before period. And that Google search led me to 3 words that changed my life forever. And I read premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And the 4 letters that changed my life were PMDD. And so premenstrual dysphoric disorder affects 1 in 12 women in the United States. I feel like those numbers are very conservative. And 1 in 20 women in the world, and 5% are suicidal. So what it really is, it's severe, debilitating PMS symptoms that show up 2 weeks before your period, known as the luteal phase. And it's when all 75% of women who experience PMS symptoms are most likely to experience those symptoms during the same time. So it's right after ovulation, and it's where our hormones are doing this wild dance in our bodies. And those who are extremely sensitive to these hormonal shifts are feeling all the feels, and it's really showing up like deep sadness and depression, anxiety, that has you very much bound, panic attacks, severe rejection, sensitivity to rejection, rage and irritability, mood swings, crying spells, sleeping issues, um, eating issues. But the top three are the depression, anxiety, and rage. And so I found myself up to that point. I had lost my job during COVID, and I found out that I wasn't an essential worker.
Mm.
And so when my my pain, right, I didn't even know to call it a symptom. I just knew how I was feeling, and it was horrible. And I was feeling this way too often. I was not linking it to my menstrual cycle. These were conversations that none of my doctors were leading me into. So, but what I did know is that I promised my two teenage daughters and I promised my boyfriend at the time that I was going to fix this and I was going to get better and I was going to stop being the mean, moody, mad mom
Mm-hmm.
and that I had to figure this out. So I went really on an 18-month journey of trying to fix this. And so I tried SSRIs and antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. I removed gluten. I took out alcohol. I was exercising. I was doing all the supplements. I even tried ketamine therapy, and
Wow.
nothing was giving me the relief that I needed from what I was feeling. And it was just these deep, plunging lows that would escalate into like just an angered moment. And then the shame and guilt would hit because of what I said or how I just couldn't stop myself. And I would end up in like a puddle of tears for days. There's, so much that, where we can talk about, but I think it's important to say that I did not feel, first of all, comfortable talking about my symptoms because the doctors weren't asking me how I was doing. They're just like, oh, you describe depression, but you don't say how bad it is. You describe how you're feeling, but you also curb it a little bit
Yeah.
because you know that you're in front of professionals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're not guiding you into really feeling a very safe environment. So you don't necessarily feel so safe, and you also don't want to feel like you're completely crazy. So, PMDD is often misdiagnosed as bipolar because what happens is when you bleed and when you get your period, your symptoms literally like are released. The release that you feel from bleeding is like it just basically the flow of blood releases the hormonal um responses and shifts that you were feeling, and you're really like at a like a massive exhaustion point, and you're just like, oh my gosh, finally it's here. And normally, when we are taught, it's like, oh my gosh, I have my period. Well, for those with PMDD, you're just so happy that you
Yeah.
finally get your period because then your symptoms stop. But then, once you understand what it is, 2 weeks later, this dark cloud, no, it's like this impending doom is going to come. Now, I wasn't linking this, right?
Sure.
So I didn't know how to say any of these things until I did that Google search. And so what I discovered is that there were women just like me, and I went into a rabbit hole of understanding what PMDD was and is and who had it, and the woman who sounded exactly like me. And I felt so validated and
Mm-hmm.
so seen. I remember running, I live in New York City, and I ran down my hallway and to my daughters, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I don't have bipolar. I have PMDD, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to fix it. But I just wanted you to know. And it was just it- like, it's terrifying when you're in this kind of very vulnerable truth with your children. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was a single mom, and you just feel like, like, oh my gosh, I know. I finally have a name to something that I never heard of. And I remember calling my doctors and my OBGYN and my therapist and my endocrinologist. And they were like, either they never heard of PMDD, or it was like, oh, I could see how that could be it, or
Yeah.
that it's it. And I'm like,
We make so
like,
much fun of like Dr. Google, especially for medical professionals. They're always like, you need to stay off Google. And it's like, okay, well, if you are not going to research my symptoms, who's gonna?
right,
Yeah.
right. And we're all left to playing self-doctor
Yeah.
and figuring it out.
Hmm.
So I joined every PMDD Facebook support group that I could. And um, for days, just crawling through posts and comments. And so I was looking up words, cure and healing, because those were words that I knew.
Hmm.
Uh, and what was terrifying is that at the moment that I felt so validated, suddenly I felt terrified, because everything that everyone was saying that was semi working for them or bringing them a little bit of relief, I had been trying for the last 18 months. So I really was terrified, because the true medical solution, um, or answer, is to have a radical hysterectomy. And I was just not wanting to go through a major surgery
Hmm.
to eliminate this pain, because I knew I always sort of felt this way about like the sadness. And I don't know what it was about this new, COVID. I knew that I was, experiencing a lot of what we all did, a lot of fear, but something really escalated all of my symptoms to a whole new level. And I'm like, I can't just like the idea of going to surgery felt so foreign to me. So I really took it off the table immediately. And so so my boyfriend, who had left at the time, and he said, because it was my rock bottom moment, he left, he jumped on a flight. He's like, I love you, but I can't do this. And we were not speaking for these days. He had no idea what I was doing and found and discovered. And so finally, when I was connecting the dots of what this really was and who this woman looked like, and it wasn't just me being psycho, right?
Yeah.
Like the rage-filled woman and girlfriend and mom, that there was something really real going on, that I had a name to it. He, I FaceTimed him, he picked up. I had sent him videos of women who looked just like me saying the same thing, and he called me back crying. Or he
Oh,
answered, he's crying, and he's like, babe, this is you. This is exactly you. So what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know, because everything that is said to be out there is helping other people. It hasn't helped me. He's like, well, if there's anyone who can figure this out, it's you. I know, like, and then so just just the being able to have a diagnosis, right,
mhm.
brought me so much clarity, because now I felt like seen by him and by my kids, which was a very, very powerful moment. In these days of trying to search and diving in post after post, I find a post that says that they no longer have symptoms from a therapy that was treating the root cause. And I'm like, the root cause? I'm like, okay, even though I've heard of the words root cause, I never heard them that way. I
Mhm.
never said it that way. I never Googled anything that way. I was never taught to say root cause. So I'm like, okay, all right, yep, for root cause, that makes total sense. And then so I went into another whole Google rabbit hole of trying to understand what this therapy was. And so what it is, it's a hybrid model of hypnotherapy, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral therapy, and neuroplasticity, and the way it harnesses the power of the mind and to find the root cause of our symptoms by working with the subconscious mind. I thought, okay, well, this is something I've never tried before. I've never tried hypnotherapy before. I've only done talk therapy.
Mhm.
I'm like, I will do anything. And here we are today. It is the therapy that literally saved my life. And it changed my life in so quickly, the massive shifts, that I knew that this was something I had to do for the rest of my life. And
Yeah.
so I became trained and certified in it. And I never really went back to my old job.
Which was
And
what?
I
What was your
opened
old job?
up what's that?
What was your old job?
I was in luxury retail management.
Okay. Okay.
So, which, in this space, like nobody just was just like, okay, I'm gonna like go into therapy. Like,
Right?
well, we're all going to therapy, but we're not.
Yeah.
So, and it really put my whole entire life and direction in a way that I didn't ever expect. But this work is by far the most transformative work that I could say that's really out there, because it taps into all of these fascinating mo- therapeutic science-based modalities. It's just not woo-woo, it's
Hmm.
science. And once I really began to really sink my teeth into it, I it was just life changing. And so I'm so grateful to be on the other side of PMDD, because not just for the relief sake, it's I broke a cycle instead of my cycle breaking me.
Yeah.
And y- and being on, this podcast where 5% of women are suicidal, and there's great loss from PMDD. It's a privilege to be on this side of the story.
Hmm.
And because the other side is absolutely a reality, because we're not catching it, and we're not talking about it as much. And the average diagnosis takes 5 to 8 years. And that's also why it gets, so lost, because we're not educated on our menstrual cycles. We're not picking it up. We're not tracking. One thing that I share as well is that we all have the same experience when we go into our OBGYNs, our doctors, even our therapists. We fill out the same form, and it's all the only question is, when is the last time you got your period? And you check the box, you write the date, and you say that you have a regular menstrual cycle every 28 to 30 days. And then you go back and you answer the same questions again. And while 75% of women are experiencing PMS symptoms, no one is asking you ever, what do you feel like before you get your period?
Hmm.
During this luteal phase, which I didn't even know was a phase,
Hmm.
I became self-taught in menstrual cycle awareness. And so no one's asking, do you feel anxious, depressed, moody, irritable? And so it ignited in me a fire about becoming more educated about our menstrual cycles, bringing awareness to menstrual cycle education and the importance of that. If we had that in our health classes in high schools, how it would absolutely be a game changer, how it would literally save lives, but also how we could diagnose mysterious women's disorders such as this, because
Right.
this isn't the only one. There's so many others that we're just not talking about because we're not being led into these conversations. So
Yeah.
I'm very, very thankful to be here.
Well, I'm thankful to have you on here because when we talk about things like this, I don't know about you, but like I'm picking up that you were gaslighting yourself through a lot of this time, trying to figure out what was going on. And
Mm,
so if no one's taking your symptoms seriously, or if you're just made to believe it's just a part of being a woman. You're just a moody woman. This is just part of your period. It's PMS. It's normal. Why would we seek out help? You know? And so my hope is that somebody is listening right now going, oh my God, that's me. You know, I always think of, and I was, for the listeners, I was telling her before we started recording, at this point, I'm collecting autoimmune diseases like Pokemon cards, right? And so you start the process of trying to figure out what on earth is wrong with me. And you can only go through so many doctors before you start going, I guess I'm making it up. Like at this point, I'm just making this up. This is all in my head. And then I've never been able to get anybody to understand. Like there's a point where you switch to, I don't care what the answer is. I just want an answer. If that means it's cancer, great. Now I know what I'm working with. But living in limbo land, feeling like you're crazy, feeling like no one believes you, feeling like you're making it all up, and then continuing to suffer, it's really, really hard. And people don't really understand that. So can you take us back to when you were, you went to Google rage before period? Is that what you Googled? Okay, so can you describe like the event or whatever, what broke you to that point where you were like, I've got, something has to give, where you went to Google it?
Well, my boyfriend left. We got into another argument about the smallest of things.
Yeah.
And see, you know, all of our responses are never really about like the dishes. It wasn't about the
Yeah.
dishes, but there's always something more.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest, I don't remember the exact argument, but I do remember one. And the example was, and it's really so ridiculous, but it really, really taps into the severe sensitivity to rejection.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And one night we were watching TV together, and it was like 9:30, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go to bed early tonight, and I'm, just gonna start, whatever, brushing my teeth and going to bed." And I'm like, "Well, I want you to just like watch this like a little bit more, and then we can like both go." "No, I just like want to go. I'm just like really tired. I'll start, and then you come in." And I'm like, "Okay." So I get irritated, right? You can feel it already, like in your woman's body, like how we begin to escalate something. And then all of a sudden I start going into like spinning tumble dryer thought.
Mm-hmm.
So he's back in the bedroom, and I'm like, he's texting somebody. He's
Mm-hmm.
definitely texting somebody. And he just wanted to be in the room so that he could like, get a conversation in real quick before I come in. And I convinced myself of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I go down the hallway and I'm like, "Can I see your phone?" He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Are you texting someone?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm just like getting ready for bed. My reality told me, my fears told me, my rejection told me that he was absolutely cheating on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't.
Yeah.
But when I couldn't unlock from that truth,
Mm-hmm.
it was like
Yeah.
all we need is one moment to begin to spin out, because we attach all the other rejection in that one moment. And I was like just a spinning tornado.
Mm-hmm.
He used to tell me like, and it always triggered me when he would say like my episodes, but he used to say, "You're this episode that you're in, I just can't wait for old Rachel to get back," which felt very gaslightish.
Mm-hmm.
But what he was just trying to say is that I don't recognize this version of you, because the version of you is really nice and thoughtful and generous and spacious, and would give me the time to go to sleep. Like, you wouldn't care before. You would be like, "Great, go to bed so I can watch my girl shows."
Yeah.
It's like, but something in that time, the luteal phase had me like heightened emotion that I couldn't turn off to seeing like what was actually reality and not. And so he used to say that the energy that I used to put out in one of these episodes was like a Boston Marathon.
Mhm.
Like, just because it was relentless and I couldn't turn it off.
Mhm.
Like it was just a spinning top until I literally wore myself out.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's so it was one of those nights and he left and he's just like, I told you if this happened one more time, you promised me. And I didn't think he was going to go. And he left. And he quickly packed up a suitcase and walked out the door. And my two daughters were home. And I had to look at them.
Yeah.
And that's when it was, one of the darkest nights because it was, um, a night that I told myself it wasn't the only night, but it was a night where I definitely said that they would be better off without me.
And you believed that, didn't you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've listened to the episode. I talk about that too. I got into the suicide prevention work. I never had somebody really close, like super close to me that had died by suicide or had had like a major attempt or anything. I had never myself, it was never, I just, for whatever reason, was really drawn to it and just really interested in it and ended up doing this career until I did. And like what you're describing, I can identify with so much, not because I had PMDD. I think I was 32 when I had my hysterectomy. But misophonia, which to people who don't have misophonia, this sounds so crazy, but it's literally noises just send me completely off the edge.
Mm.
And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse over the years. And so it was almost to the point where I could not live in my own house because God forbid my husband breathe or chew because I could hear it and it would just be like I would get so angry so fast. And I just felt like I was just an absolute toad to live with. Like I didn't think anybody really genuinely could love me the way that I
Mm.
was because I was always so angry. And
Mm.
what you just described, it like there was a night where I was particularly bad and I was not myself. Like
Mhm.
that is not who I am. And everybody knows that. And at the same time, I couldn't control it. And so,
Mhm.
sitting at work and I was like, I need to self delete. They'll be so much better
Mhm.
without me. And then like when I had that thought, I was like, uh-oh, we have a major problem here. Like this can't go on. And so was able to get help and everything and still
Mhm.
currently working through it. But
Mhm.
I never understood the depths that you believe that until I experienced it. And so I thank you for your vulnerability in saying that because for those that have never been through it, it's really hard to imagine. They're like, okay, but obviously not. And you know, we can see it from other people's eyes and being like, I can see from the outside looking in why you would say that, but you just don't know my scenario and they really would be better off. And it's
Right.
so dangerous and scary.
Mhm. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't hear that story of yours before.
Yeah, it was really wild.
Mhm.
Because for the longest time I was able to say I've never had any suicidal ideations or whatever. Can't say that now. Um, but it sounds like we had a very similar path though, where
Mhm. Mhm.
this rage monster comes out and it's like, who are you? You are obviously not who I am at my core. And also how do we tame it?
I think it's important to talk about the rage, right?
Yeah.
Because we as women, I'm sure you have seen so many sarcastic reels about anger and mood and whether it's perimenopause, whether it's PMS, whether it's PMDD, menopause, wherever it's coming from, Yeah, and we all laugh it off and say, "Yeah, me too." Like we're opening up to feeling comfortable about it, and there is a place where we are honoring the rage is honoring a place in us,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just two sides to the coin. It's like, where is it coming from? Asking those questions, but also realizing that it can like destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can laugh at it but we also have to be very delicate to not just throw off these things, because I'm not really yet hearing the conversation about how destructive it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to start sharing that as well, because our children do not feel safe around that.
Right.
It is not okay for us to be that ignited and that inflamed, even if it's not our fault in the moment. When I see it now, I'm like, my children literally must have been terrified many, many, many times when I was just coming home. What version of mom is going to show up when
Mm.
she walks in the door? Did she have a good day? Is she
Yeah.
going to take it out on us? Is she going to be mad that, oops, there's dishes in the sink, or, I didn't get all my homework done, or, I have to tell her something about what happened in school today. It's like, to live in that place of fear is something that I've tried to really take ownership of what their experience was as much as I possibly can, and own that pain, that was their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And these are critical because it helps us remain accountable to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we can very easily play victim, nothing is going to help us more than to become empowered to recognize that these feelings are not serving me or my family, or really, I'm sure, anyone around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to say that too,
Yeah.
because it's really, it's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
To put your hand up and say, I'm sorry, or to just take responsibility for something, even if you don't know how to necessarily harness it and
Mm-hmm.
to take control, because we would never want our children to be doing that. So
Right.
somehow we say, well, we make excuses for ourselves. So then they're seeing, okay, but you would never let me do that,
Mm-hmm.
but then you're okay with doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it becomes a very delicate balance that we're walking on, and then we end up creating for them a lot of eggshells
Mm-hmm.
around us, which I've had to really work through a lot of guilt with knowing that that was a lot of their experience around me at times.
It's so healing, though, for you to be willing to talk to them about it and take that ownership of, I'm not proud of how I just acted. I'm not proud of how I acted when you were little. I caused you harm, and it was never intentional. I have always loved you so much, but I need you to know that I acknowledged I caused you harm, and I'm genuinely sorry for it. Can you imagine, like, what the world would be like if parents apologized to their kids as the norm?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
that's something that I tried really, really hard from early on to do, because there were so many times in my childhood that I really felt like I was owed an apology, because clearly they were not acting as themselves. I grew up, I knew I was loved. We didn't talk about it much. Like, no one ever said it, but like you knew it, right? Um, but everybody loses their shit every now and again, like everybody overreacts every now and again. No one is a perfect parent. But you build that resentment towards your parents when they won't acknowledge that they've caused harm.
mhm,
At least I did.
mhm,
So I've always tried to model that for my son. It's like,
mm,
hey, I absolutely lost my shit on you. You did not deserve that. I am so sorry.
Mhm.
And just like actually like model taking ownership of your actions. Like
Mhm.
our actions have consequences. And
Mhm.
so I don't know
I
what
love
more
that.
powerful way to model that for your kids is being willing to apologize to them.
Yeah. It's just like you hear the song, "If I could turn back time,
Yes.
if I could
Okay.
find a way."
Absolutely. But that's the thing is like,
But we're here.
yeah, I'm 40 years old, and if I got an apology from my parents about something, I'd probably just like, I would turn into that 7-year-old scared child and just probably weep, and it would be so
Yeah.
healing,
Right.
like
Right.
never too late to take ownership of those things and say,
Yeah.
hey,
So true.
yeah. Okay, so you Googled it, and I wrote down 18 months. You went on this long journey, just trying everything, trying to figure it out. And what you ended up on was, and correct me if I'm wrong, you ended up getting cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnosis or hypnotherapy, and something else. I don't remember what the other thing was.
Elements of neuroscience and neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, yes.
Mhm.
So, okay, so let's start with so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
right? And so working with a cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm assuming, and working through the steps or
Well, so all this therapy model is called Rapid Transformational Therapy.
okay.
And Marissa Peer, who's now a renowned celebrity therapist, she, in her 30 years of practice, saw what was, as a therapist, saw what was the best modalities out there. And so she saw the power of the subconscious mind in hypnotherapy, and she blended the techniques of cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's even like some parts work in there. And then she understood the concept of the way the mind works, and then the piece of neuroplasticity, and then she made this the modality
Okay,
of like, and so it's called RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy.
I got it. That's so cool. So with the neuroplasticity part, I'm about to ask you a completely different question, but I recognize neuroplasticity from like mindfulness and meditation, like being able to your neuroplasticity meaning my mind is focused on this thing that's absolutely pissing me off. I need the ability to pull back from that and put my focus elsewhere or like pull my brain out of that. And if I don't practice meditation or mindfulness or whatever, where I acknowledge, hey, I've got this thought right now. I see you. Thank you, mind, for alerting me. We're done here. I'm going to move my focus over here. Like being able to do that. And it's almost like a muscle in your brain that you
Hmm.
have to practice. And so
Hmm.
when you start, you are going to suck at it. Okay. Especially if you have ADHD or anything like other um, neurospicy is in my head. That is not the term. What is the term? Not neurotypical. Neurodivergent. Oh Lord, we got
Yeah,
there. Okay. Neurodivergent in some way. Lord, that was painful, wasn't it?
it's
Um,
good.
but if you're neurodivergent, you might even have a harder time with it, because your brain is firing in all cylinders all the time. But it's really important to practice that because the more you practice it, the more you're able to kind of do it. When you're in therapy using the rapid transformational therapy, are there functional things like that? Like, can you explain what like a typical therapy session looks like, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, so what you start off with, and so RTT isn't just for PMDD. Marissa Peer started off with infertility. I mean,
Okay.
once you go into like really looking and exploring the why behind a lot, um, and you can uncover so much from addiction to, fear of flying, to scarcity and lack, um, to, all the layers of, my conditioning, which now had a name called PMDD.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand that when you're at the point that you're coming into an RTT session, you most likely have filled out a form, um, or had a call with a therapist, and you're going through like you would a consultation call with your a family history with your doctor or your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're getting some background on, you're sharing some background on yourself, and you're also sharing what you felt like as a child and your family dynamics and background. And it's important to understand, even on that conscious call, like that side of just, the talk therapy side, is that you're hearing or seeing life themes that happened that have really reactivated and retriggered those emotions and those feelings and those pain points. And when you really felt them as early as you can remember. And some people will say, well, I don't really have memories of my childhood. I'm not really sure if this would really work for me, but you can always go back to a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, say, for me, the depression, I wanted to understand the sadness because I knew that I felt this way. I knew that I felt different. I know that I felt that I was very sensitive as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to explore more. So what a session would look like is that we go back to the feeling. I want you to, and it's under hypnosis. So now you're in like the subconscious mind. You're working with a very, very natural state of the brain. We are in this state several times during our days,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't even realize it when we wake up, when we go to bed, in deep meditation, in prayer, even. We access this without even knowing it. Even like an example is if you're going to the grocery store and you're behind the wheel and all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did I get here? That's
Yeah.
basically your autopilot subconscious just taking over.
Yeah.
And so that natural state that you're induced in, and we go back to memories that have all to do with your origin of the beginning memories or of times that you felt sad as a child. And if a client would start at 12 years old, would say, well, was that the first time you felt that way? And most likely it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just really create this timeline therapy of going back to your earliest remembrance. Well, you begin to see that, let's say, 3 scenes you explore, you begin to see that there's a theme of all of these moments and what it meant to you. And then in the power of the subconscious mind, you hear the limited belief. You hear the belief that you attached to this memory and
Mm-hmm.
moment. So, take for instance, I was lost on a beach at the Jersey Shore when I was 6 years old, and I was lost for hours. And I knew that always happened to me. It's not like I pushed it out of my mind. I always knew that that happened to me. And but I never knew what it meant to me under hypnosis, and I never knew what I told myself about me in that moment. Well, if little Rachel is 6 years old and if she's lost for hours, well, then no one's looking for her. And if no one's looking for her, then no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
And if no one cares, then they forgot about me. And if they really forgot about me, well, then I'm not loved.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not loved, well, then I'm not lovable. And if I'm not lovable, I shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And I had little moments like that, like we all do,
Sure.
because these are the little traumas
Mm-hmm.
that we all experience. It's a negative event that left a negative impact and a negative belief that turned into a negative thought. And the moment that that becomes your belief system, your mind only has one job, is to prove that that is the truth. So you go through life then believing that you are not loved,
Mm-hmm.
that you are not lovable, that you're forgettable,
Mm-hmm.
and you put through this lens of, I'm not safe, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and whatever these deep beliefs are become the way that we experience our life. Before we go into the next part of the therapy, it's really important to share that science is now showing that the subconscious mind starts being formed when we're in our third trimester
Mm-hmm.
up till 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that time, we are just one big download of information to our culture, to our family, to our backgrounds, to our environments, and everything that we experience and everything that we feel is our programming.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the foundation of our life. So
Mm-hmm.
you pack on all the human conditioning and all the layers and all the family history and all the trauma and the addictions and the divorce and the debt and the wars and the all
Yeah.
of it is there, and it's in us. And so now we go through our life, and now 95% of everything that we do is coming from the belief systems from when we were up to 7 years old. And it's so crazy to believe that only 5% of what we're doing is actually conscious new decisions or
Mm-hmm.
feelings or something different. And we're all literally living on autopilot and we don't know it.
Yeah.
And so that's the power of the working with the subconscious mind. It is imperative, I believe, that we understand where the limited beliefs come from, is because we want to validate our experience. We
Yeah.
want to validate our story and our pain. And the moment that we're able to see it at that lens as an adult, we realize, oh my gosh, of course I felt that way. Of course I believed that. You just want to take that little you and just give yourself a big hug and say,
Yes.
like, of course that's what you thought and that's what you concluded.
Yeah.
But then you realize, I'm not there anymore. And that's another part in the sessions of understanding, I'm no longer her. I'm no longer 6 years old, 6-year-old little Rachel at the Jersey Shore, feeling these feelings and believing these thoughts. I don't want those thoughts anymore. I don't want that belief. And you let them go. You give yourself the permission to finally release the charge of these false beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to harness the power of this neuroplasticity of reframing the belief system. And so by the end of the session, you have all these massive aha moments about the truth about you and about your story. And you're given a recording that you commit to listening to 21 to 30 days, so that you can build new neural pathways to create new beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
to create new feelings and new thoughts and a new outcome of life.
Mm-hmm.
We're unable to do so, all the things we may very well want. But if we have a subconscious block to it, we're never going to be able to get there until we understand really and spin that belief on its head, understand it, and then harness the power of neuroplasticity. And now there's like, if you even just, YouTube neuroplasticity, you see like all these fascinating brain images of how
Yeah.
the neural pathways are connected,
Mm-hmm.
and what it looks like literally in our brain when we are rewiring these new beliefs and these new feelings and these new abilities in us. And so, um, That's really the powerful um, explanation of what rapid transformational therapy is.
So that's amazing, and you explained it so well. I Number one, so many people, you said it earlier, but so many people say, meditation and hypnosis and all these things, it's just woo woo, mumbo jumbo, whatever. There's literally physical changes in your brain when you do these things. Like, it's not like you can see it, like what you say, you're seeing the connections and everything happening. It's hard to get people to understand that. I mean, science is catching up, but it's still having to break all these myths that's been out there,
Yes.
all the stigma around all that kind of, those type of things. But I mean, it literally changes your brain. I remember going through EMDR therapy, which is similar. It's not hypnosis, but it is similar in which,
Mhm.
you're doing, it's rapid eye move, EMDR,
Yeah,
eye movement, rapid processing, maybe. I just made that up. Please, no one take that
I
literally.
think
Just
you're
Google
you're
EMDR.
right, or you're right there.
It's real close. I know I'm real close. Okay. So, but doing that, like processing trauma and creating new neural pathways, like that's the point. And what they don't tell you, which I'm curious to know if this happened to you through this, but what they don't tell you about EMDR is it can, I'm going to say, quote unquote, break your brain, but as your brain is making these new neural pathways and believing new things and doing all that, it can make some of your other symptoms kind of amplified because it's almost like your brain's a little bit raw, right? Like so that happened to me. I had the
Mm,
misophonia before, and I started doing the EMDR and I started processing things and trying to move past some things that had really bubbled up at that time. And Lord, did the irritability skyrocket. But it did because, and they explained it to me later, it did because I'm literally rewiring my brain to believing more positive things about myself and, all these things that happened when I was a child and, what that really meant about my worth or my value or whatever, like
mhm,
confronting those beliefs that you develop when, you don't have a prefrontal cortex to do that correctly, but, you do the best you can when you're with what you have. And so, at the end of it, it's like, oh my gosh, and it took a while for that to calm back down too. But talking to the psychiatrist, um, she was like, this happens all the time, and I was like, y'all should really put a warning sticker on that. People are not expecting it, but it literally changes your brain. So
mhm.
it's not this abstract theory that,
Right.
oh, this might help because Western medicine hasn't helped yet, so this might help. It's not like that at all. How did this end up helping you, like, operationalize it for me? What did it look like to you? How did you know you were starting to heal?
Here comes my menstrual cycle, and here comes the luteal phase, and this more or less like brace yourself. I will say that my symptoms were about 7 days out of the 14. Some women are literally debilitated for the full 14. Mine usually came a week before my period, so I still had about another good third week.
Mhm.
And so, but you're really like bracing for impact again. And all of a sudden, I realized that the deep sadness wasn't really there. And the heightened rage wasn't there. Yes, there was irritability. And yes, there was, still tears.
Mhm.
But what begins to shift is that the powerful moment that you have the why behind the pain, you have like something really solid that you can work with. Because with most likely you're getting some really great support in with your therapist who's able to hold that space for you and say, okay, so you got triggered again. whatever it might be, right? So you got triggered and you went to some deep sadness, something happened at the dinner table. Okay, so just give yourself some space, take a moment and just reconnect and see that that little girl is no longer there anymore. Okay, just remember, so it's like even when you begin to get activated, it's because you're still making the old familiar your new familiar. We're tuned into one radio station our whole life, and to dial that down and to put on a new frequency, it takes an adjustment. And so it's not like it's saying that this work is like the magic only formula. But when you commit to the process, because it's neuroscience and because you're harnessing the power of the mind, which then really begins to create a physical response and emotional ease and a regulated nervous system, it changes your whole projection so that you can then hear the belief of, like, say if I'm going to get activated again by maybe a comment that my boyfriend's going to make, who's now my husband, by the way.
Congrats.
So the piece of what healing looks like is restored relationships and family and
Yeah.
marriages,
Yeah.
and jobs, and being able to move on with your life because you're realizing those were really false beliefs. And so the moment that you can recognize, okay, I'm feeling this way because I really didn't feel safe as a child. And how do I really work through that? Okay, I'm safe now. I'm seeing myself now. I'm okay. Breathing through it. It's not that it's all just gone, but you have now powerful tools to really make that the new familiar. And
Mhm.
that becomes now the better station that is playing, and then that amplifies a completely new direction for your life
Yeah.
because you're changing your literal frequency and your thoughts and your beliefs. And once you do, your life really changes.
That's amazing. And I just have to say this too. I am so proud of you for doing that hard work because I don't think people give enough credit to themselves or to others who do it. But going through therapy to heal things that are going on in your life is so hard. It's 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 going to feel hard. You're going to have to drag yourself to your appointments sometimes. Like the whole process, it's real, it's raw. You have, like I had a particularly yesterday, my therapist, I don't know what he was thinking, but with like 5 minutes left, he drops this bomb on me and I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, the bomb was, I've never felt safe. In 40 years, I've never felt safe. I was trying desperately to say, well, no, I am, and here's why. And it was my hypervigilance making me feel safe so that I knew, like, I was prepared for any and everything that could possibly happen. My brain is
Mhm.
constantly doing that in the background. So yeah, I'm safe. I know how to take that person out and I know where to hide and I know how to escape and all of these things. And he was like, that's so you feel prepared. It's not what I asked. Do you feel safe?
Mm.
It's been a long time since I've cried that much. And it just kept happening over and over and over throughout the night. It just like little things would happen. And I'm like, I'm just so sad for child Rikki. Like, I just want to go hug her because she didn't know. That's the part of therapy that I don't think people talk about much. Like
Mhm.
they don't give it the value that it deserves. And
Mhm.
so I like, if you've never heard this, I am proud of you for doing that because people don't think about the power of that type of therapy and the power of your brain to do those things for you. Like, we're just now starting to understand
Mhm.
the real power behind that. And, people are
Mhm.
like, words matter, things of that nature. I believe that, don't get me wrong, but that's just so surface level. Like, there's so much more underneath. And so
Yeah.
coming forward and openly talking about this and helping women with this is very powerful. You're changing lives, and that should be celebrated.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that when the reality is that I lived most of all of my life in deep emotional pain.
Hmm.
And when you realize that you can get out, you fight like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because to go back there, it's there's nothing but emptiness.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you're bringing up a really powerful point that you see all of our coping is really serves us until it's not serving us anymore.
Hmm.
It's like the anger for me was serving me. It was keeping me at arm's distance from things that were like, not for me, allowed me to just go off when I needed to. It protected me from those who I thought were against me. It allowed me to get in arguments and like stand up for myself, but it's not grounded in it's grounded in fear.
Hmm.
It's not based in worth and love and safety. It's like the example of like our responses often feel like that tiger that's like in the moment that we don't feel safe, it
Hmm.
comes out, and that is the primal response that we have, instead of, because we're conditioned to believe that we're not safe. So here comes all the emotions because I'm not safe. And
Hmm.
so until you realize that anger is not serving you or your family or your home or your life, um, whether that's suppressed or it's coming out, right? Um, when you get to the point that these emotions or these feelings, you're tired of them, that is the most beautiful place to begin the journey of
Hmm.
any of this, of the work, right?
Hmm.
Of the deep inner work of the exploration of us.
Hmm.
And it all serves us until, and it has a place until we hit, our own personal rock bottom, and what that looks like for each one of us.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, I know we're over time, but I want to say this last thing at least. Um, earlier you were talking about you were doing the hypnosis and you were talking to that poor girl lost. I believe it was on a beach.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the message you gave yourself was, I'm not lovable. And then we fast forward to your relationships, and you're in this relationship, and this is outside looking in. You can tell me, hey, Rikki, you're full of shit. That's actually not what it was at all. And my feelings won't be hurt, and we'll have a lovely, lovely viral moment. Okay. Um, but you can also say I'm right. Um, it sounds like to me you were subconsciously making yourself unlovable, because then it was you in control of it instead of being genuinely unlovable by this person and feeling that rejection. So it's like this internalized belief that you believe about yourself, it's manifesting in your behavior regardless if that's what you really meant to do or not. um, and I can see, I see parallels with that as well, um, like just in my own experience. Does that resonate at all?
Well, you're picking up on, so I was 6, right? And so
Yeah.
up to 7 or 8 years old is when the subconscious mind is being formed. So that was my feeling. Now, did I know that my parents really did love me? Yes. When I was reunited with them, and when they were indeed, when I found out that they were searching for me,
Yeah.
you know, yes. But it's what I found out, what I believed subconsciously.
Yeah.
So, and the moment that took it at that root, like it's to me imperative that we discover that at the root cause.
Yeah.
That's a powerful way to to review and to play detective with our emotions and our symptoms and our stuck points and our scarcity. It's because it's often tied to a belief system of something that we picked up all the way back then.
Yeah. It's so wild to think about.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
yeah. Um, you have me curious. I'm probably going to look into this therapy, once I'm done dealing with this current issue we're therapizing for, but there's always something to work on.
There is.
Bless it. Okay. Well, if you could go back and tell Rachel from 5 years ago anything, or you can tell your loved ones something back then. If you had your time machine, you go and you're like, hey, future Rachel here, just want to give you a little note from the future. What would you say?
Well, if I would have been tracking my symptoms earlier,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important for us as women to be tracking so that we can start attaching these symptoms to our menstrual cycle. I think if we had that ability to really give ourselves the permission to saying, I'm really moody, I'm feeling really low, we can also be honest with ourselves and with our girlfriends and our mothers and children and grandparents. Like we're like this, we're journeying as women as like these like only soldiers when we have a vast army. We've disconnected all of our parts. And so it's like I would start there because my story is about I wish I would have had more menstrual cycle awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then also to say to myself is that everything that I felt or feel still along this way is validated. And I just need to still continue on the journey of discovering the why.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm constantly still moving through,
Yeah.
this human experience of moving through the resistance and moving through the stuck points so that I can identify the why and reframe the belief
Mm-hmm.
and move through something quicker. And I think that when you start investing in yourself, it becomes one of the most self-rewarding things that you could ever do because you're learning about you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can become a cleaner, clearer stream to share that place of love and service with others as you're doing. It's like you're just peeling off the layers. We're unclogging the drains, and we're opening, and that's a beautiful thing to witness in this day of the courage that it takes to show up for ourselves, but here. And so thank you for this time, and being brave to have such a powerful podcast as this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's my genuine hope somebody out there listening is going, oh my God, this is me, or oh my God, this is my friend, or this is my daughter, or this is my mom, or whatever. Like they're seeing that line up and they're like, oh my God, there's a little bit of hope. There may be a way to actually deal with this instead of just, wishing and hoping for menopause or a hysterectomy. Because that you're right. It is a radical change to your body. As much natural healing as we can do, I think the better for everybody. So for those that want to have you come speak or want to get your book, you have written a book, From Cursed to Cured, How to Treat and Cure PMDD Naturally, correct?
Correct.
All right. And we can send anybody who wants to hear you. Now, you speak on other things, correct? Not just on PMDD.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
So I think that since I've been in this space for now several years, And I'm outside of my PMDD experience. And I really see that perimenopause is also attached to a lot of these heavier emotions that we've just never dealt with, these suppressed emotions.
Mhm.
So, because I feel like I've moved in a way and not necessarily beyond, but because of the beautiful science base that I'm just like so fascinated in about like our
Mhm.
limitless potential, I'm now seeing that PMDD was my portal into the remembrance of really my highest identity
Mhm.
and my possibilities and what are the infinite abilities that we have within us to really tap into abundance and tap into higher self and
Mhm.
higher service and higher good. And so it's moving, but you're still working with the same elements, right? Because you're still identifying with something that's still keeping you stuck, and why. But
Yeah.
now that you have these, you've learned these really powerful tools. So it's understanding, more of our emotional mastery, if you will,
Mhm.
and opening up that conversation, because once we're there, then we're more successful, then we're more driven, then we're more loving, then we're more generous, and we're less fearful. We're able to move through this life experience with more ease and grace and surrender and trust,
Mhm.
because we're more grounded. So those are some conversations, some
Awesome.
talks.
That's so cool. I love every bit of that. I love it. I love all of it. I find stuff like that fascinating. And I do believe that we're put on this earth to learn certain lessons and to give the world a certain something. And we all have these innate abilities, but it's hard to unlock them sometimes. And so it's lovely to have somebody out there doing that kind of work. People need a guide, I'm looking over at my Great Dane, who is thinking very hard about getting in my lap. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and for doing your work and doing the work so that you can do your work. Sounds kind of
Love
poetic and
that.
clunky all at the same time.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rikki.
If this episode made you feel seen or help you see someone else more clearly, please share it. Send it to a friend or your therapist or your OB or anyone who's ever Googled, why am I a rage monster before my period? And while you're at it, rate and review the show. It helps us get to more people and share these sanity-saving conversations. And if today's episode hit a nerve or made you want to scream, oh my God, same, into the void, leave a comment or review and tell me what resonated. What was it? The rage? Was it the relief? Was it the doctor who acted like Google was the problem? I want to hear it. Your story matters, and I would like to be able to share that and get that insight. You never know who else might need to see that they're not alone. Next week, we're diving into something a little bit softer, but just as powerful: how to create a care package for someone who's going through it. And I mean, like, they're going into a depression that it makes brushing your teeth feel like a major life event. Whether it's grief or blues or full-blown, I can't get out of my bed, it doesn't matter. We'll cover what to include, what not to include, and how to show up with love instead of cliches. So trust me, this episode it's one that's going to make you somebody's favorite human. We'll see you next week where we continue to intervene with ease.